Hey guys, how's it going today? GriffyBit here, and today we're doing a next episode of Unit Rundown. Today, the Warrior. So let's get down into it. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. I hope everybody's having a fantastic week, and I hope you're all enjoying the good Stream Raider content that you can get from Twitch and from YouTube. The Warrior is a low-cost melee unit with sturdy HP and a good single target damage. These prioritize taking out armored, as we know with unit priority in my other videos. It reduces all healing to their targets to 1 HP for 60 seconds. This is a very good thing to know, especially when it comes to the Warrior. And as we know in our other videos, speaking of which, if you have not seen my other videos, I suggest to check them out. We go through the basics, then we go on to specializations, where to place, pros and cons, and then we give our personal opinion, rating out of 10, and then we come out with an outro. So, let's get started with the basics. And of course, we do non-epic and epic version. Non-epic going first. We got the roll is melee. Attack range is 1, the attack speed is 1, and by that, that's attack per second. Its move speed is also 1, which is tile per second, and it cannot target flying. But on the epic side, everything stays the same, except it has a 1.3 attack range, and it can target flying. Milestones is your level 1 milestone is 30% bonus damage to armored units. Your level 5 milestone is 50% bonus damage. Level 10 is 70%. Level 20 is 85% bonus damage, and level 30 is that juicy 100% bonus damage against armored units. With epic unit, these numbers stay the same. The target priority is pretty lackluster, pretty basic. It will seek out any armored unit it can find within its range, and if it cannot find an armored unit with its range, it will just attack the closest unit. It can walk through healers, flag bearers, and range units, but it cannot walk through monks, templars, armored, or other melee units. And of course, as before, we don't go through health or power because those stats change based on level and specialization. Speaking of specialization, let's talk about them. Let's start off with rallying. So Rallying Warrior, every 7 seconds, cast a buff to all allied units in a 2 radius around you, which lasts 5 seconds and grants 10% increased damage. So think about a really weak flag bearer that attacks. The epic version to Rallying Warrior is the same, except it increases to 3 radius and gives 30% extra damage. So rallying is actually not that bad of a spec. Raging Warrior has a 15% bonus damage against other melee units, and then sets the bonus damage to armored units 85% regardless of level. This is another one of those specs again that I was talking about before, but Raging Warrior is actually not a bad pick since it only does either armored units or melee units. So the next up from armored units are melee units, so you can actually see yourself getting some good, solid DPS out of having this spec. But remember, you lose 15% extra damage to the armored units at level 30, which is a huge hindrance. But at the same time, 15% extra damage is not really worth it. For the epic version, you get 40% instead of 15%, but you still get the 85% damage regardless of level, which is a issue because even still, you could just place an archer to do more damage to a melee than you would for a warrior. A warrior won't really get a chance to attack other melee simply because they'll get nuked out by range by that time. And you know I always save the last specialization, the best one. Always going to be the best one. We got Vengeful Warrior. This is the one, this is the spec I want you guys to take. I want you guys to use because this is where you're going to see the most DPS out of the Warrior you could possibly squeeze. The Warrior, the Vengeful Warrior, on death, explodes, does damage, and this damage multiplies by buffs to all enemies in a 2 radius. This is really good. If you have a level 30 warrior that's doing tons of damage, and he blows up, he does that full melee damage, and it's a melee type explosion, so it will do extra damage to armored units. This is huge. This is big. Having a Vengeful Warrior explode on death is exactly what you need. For the epic version, it doesn't change though. You still get the 2 radius and it still blows up, but Remember, since it gets increased by buffs and does by its current attack, when you epic a warrior, it increases in damage, so therefore the Vengeful Warrior will end up doing more damage if it's epic. This is the spec I suggest you to go. With duplicates, you kind of have a little bit of whether you want to go Raging or Rallying. Personally, I would go double Vengeful, or I'd do one Vengeful, one Rallying, in case I wanted to use the Rallying as a little bit more of a buff tool, because unique buffs don't stack. And speaking of getting the most DPS out, let's talk about where to place the warrior. For the warrior, where you want to place it is, since we're talking about micro setting, which is 30 placers or less, you have the tanks in the front, the melee in the sides, the healers behind the armored, and range behind the healers. So when you put them on the side, ideally you want them to be, especially if you're going Vengeful, you want them to be in front of the melee line, so they'll be right beside your tanks. This will be so the armored can take all the range damage while your warriors go in to attack the armored and have the ability to blow up in order to deal that damage to the Vengeful, to be able to deal that damage to those armored units because of the Vengeful explosive specialization. If you're placing with a Rallying Warrior, on the other hand, you want to place that farther back so your other melee get that buff, so then you don't get crushed right away. Because with Rallying, you want to make sure that they are safe and that they are okay. So ideally, you want your Rallying Warriors with your Berserkers, so everybody that's melee, such as Vengeful, get those buffs from the Berserkers and also get the buffs from the Rallying Warrior. So now that we got that covered, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pros, it has a good health pool, nice and high. You can take a decent amount of damage before it drops. It's actually got moderately high damage, especially if you're going Vengeful. It's very cost effective. It's very cheap, very good to use. Lowest cooldown in the game. This is another one of those basic units that are literally the staple of the game. Super easy to find in the shops, super cheap in the shops. It requires literally no meat to place 6 of these in one map. You will use a total of 5 meat if you want to place all warriors in one map on a 30-minute interval. It has spec diversity. You don't have to just have one spec. You can have multiple. You can either choose Vengeful and then take your dupe as either Rallying or Raging. Not so much Raging, more or less Rally, but that's only for niche scenarios. It's beginner friendly. Very, very beginner friendly. This unit is good in PvP and PvE. Let's talk about the cons. It has an issue walking through armored units. So if you're trying to get to a point where you're trying to do damage, it won't work because your armored will be in the way. Super susceptible to splash damage. You will see a lot of warriors die to splash damage all the time. It's not as good as some of the other melee units you could possibly use. And with specs, you either have to choose whether you want to buff or you want to do damage. Now, let's go on to my personal opinion of what I think about the warrior. I think that the warrior is just your basic unit, your staple for melee, but in the long run, it's a fantastic unit. If you don't have barbarian to play or you don't have berserker to play, you can always place a warrior and expect good things from it. It's a very beginner-friendly unit. I personally love the warrior just because if I'm in a niche spot and I need a melee ASAP, that is the first unit I go to, especially when it comes to Vengeful. Very easy to level up. You're going to see warrior probably be one of the first units you get to level 30 and probably one of the first units you get as a dupe. But all in all, it's one of those basic units that you don't really have much of an opinion on. It's not bad. It's not good. It's in the middle. It's just an all-arounder good class, good unit. But little bit of speculation when it comes to Vengeful and Rallying. Most people will say double Vengeful is the play because Rallying sucks. I say Rallying isn't too bad, but that's because I'm considering this under a niche circumstance of when if you want to play more support rather than playing more offense. So the warrior, the rating out of 10. What are we going to give the warrior? The fact that it can play in PvP and PvE and has a low cooldown and has the ability to be good in, if not all situations, I would give this unit an 8 out of 10. You call me crazy for giving it an 8 out of 10, but the fact that you can have a unit that is good in PvP and PvE and still be able to do good damage towards armored units, which especially in PvP, that's super important, it gets an 8 out of 10. Low cooldown, cost effective, PvP, PvE, able to take out armored units. These are the staples that you literally need to win maps. Especially if you get a map where you're dealing with a level 30 mutant, it's going to be really strong. So, 8 out of 10. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. That has been episode Ep.4 of Unit Rundown. Leave in a comment section below. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you even like this series, and tell me which unit you want to do next. You can catch me on Twitch. I do a lot of Stream Raiders. I do Stream Raiders pretty much all day, and also chat. Next Alpha, Stream Pirates is coming up, and you know who's going to be a Stream Pirate captain. So if you guys want to know, you can check out the links below. I'll leave my Twitch there. And subscribe. Hit that follow button. Maybe, hit that little bell so you get a little bit of notification action so you know when I put a video next. Anyway, I've been your stream captain for today. My name is GriffyBit, proud owner of the Itty Bitty Army. I'll see you guys for episode 5. Peace out.